guys, I'm out here in the shop today getting ready to install this Demon 625 CFM carb. As you guys know from the last video, I took off the Holley carb. It was a 600 CFM, just having a lot of problems with it, leaking, getting it adjusted, things like that. It's a good carb. I just wanted to go a little different direction this time, and so I've heard such good things about these Demon carbs. So I wanted to go ahead and give it a shot and see how it's going to work. In all the videos and things like that that I've watched, all the online reviews, it just sounds like this is a really trouble-free carb. It's really easy to install, almost plug and play from the factory. You know, kind of claim to fame is you can get it on in 30 minutes from scratch and have a running car after that. So we're going to give it a shot. I'm not necessarily going for a record here as far as time. I'm just going to install it, get the linkage set up, fuel going back to it, and then we're going to get this 55 started, and hopefully that's all the kind of working all the kinks out of it, and it's ready to go after that. New cooling system went in, so I put a new radiator on, a new fuel pump, and now really the last piece of the puzzle is this new carburetor. So guys, here we go. Wanted to show the unboxing. So you open it up and you get, it looks like a extend your warranty for free. You got a bag full of just accessories, stickers, gaskets, extra fittings, looks like throttle fittings, things like that, extra fuel fittings, carb hat retainer, and an extra choke wire. And then obviously the manuals. And then down in here is the actual carb itself. So we'll get it out of the box here and see what it looks like. I did opt for, in this case, what they call space age polymer bowl. It's that black bowl. Let's see if I can get you to see it here. It's that black bowl right there, so it's not actually metal. It's a polycarbonate material. They say it reduces your fuel temperature by up to 20 degrees because it doesn't transfer the heat from your engine to the fuel. So I don't know, thought it was kind of neat. It was the same price as everything else. Everything else looks like it's cast aluminum. Not too much of a polish on it, but maybe shot peened or something. I'm not really sure, but it looks like a nice carb. So it's going to sit on the car pretty much just like that. I'll hook up the linkage. Get a little Demon logo right there on the front, and pretty good looking car. But it's very unusual looking if you're not, if you're used to kind of a typical carburetor setup. It looks very futuristic, and so I'm really excited to get it on. Alright guys, putting on these gaskets in the seal plate. Good thing about this is Demon does a really good job at sending you these gaskets with dual holes, and the carb is actually set up the same way too. And whether you have a spread bore or a square bore intake manifold, it's set up to work with that. And so it makes it very easy to get everything set up and adapted to your specific specifications. So put it on. I put the paper on first. That's actually backwards, so let's try this again. There we go. That looks better. And then we'll put the other paper on top of that one. So now that's all said and done. We'll get the carb here and go ahead and put it on. Make sure there's nothing down here, just residue from the cardboard box or something like that that could cause any kind of fuel leaks, and for it not to sit flush. It looks good to me. Everything looks clean. Alright, got a little bit of an issue with the back. There's a looks like a vacuum line that's coming in the back and a fitting on the back of the intake manifold, and then there's a vacuum line back here that this little rubber thing's kind of hitting on. So I'll have to make sure. Let me take this off and see if it still fits, because it won't go down flush on the actual intake manifold. So I may have to actually cut this. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, that's a problem. So that's our first problem. So you can see this intake, this vacuum fitting is sticking out pretty far. And let me grab the camera here. On the actual intake manifold itself, you see I've got that brass fitting right there. It looks like it's the brake booster. the vacuum for the brake booster. It's coming over here to this the brake booster, and that is directly in the way of that vacuum fitting. So gonna have to kind of figure this out. All right, so I've looked at the carb. Basically, you've got the PCV valve vacuum. You've got just direct vacuum for any other accessory that you're running. This is your timing advance vacuum for your distributor and timing. And then you've got actually a power brake vacuum plug in here for your power brake boosters. Well, so what I'm going to do then is I'm actually going to take that fitting off of the intake manifold right there and reroute this power brake booster hose directly to the back of that carb the way it's set up, and then I'll just use a plug to plug this. Kind of changed my plan a little bit in the fact that I can't find a plug for that intake manifold to plug up that vacuum line for the brake booster, so or that port. So I just scrounged around in some of my plumbing fittings that I had in the shop here and came up with this elbow. It's a little bit thinner. It does allow that carb to sit on like that, and that PCV port basically to sit about right there. So I've got a little bit of clearance. My PCV hose is too short anyways, so it's going to be kinked a little bit. But this is not the way I'm going to leave it. I'm just trying to get the carb on today, and then I can always come back and port it or plug that port just like I was planning on doing, and then it would basically, then I would open it up and put it in the back of this carb. So I don't have any fittings either for this. This is a I think it's a 9/16 if I remember right, and the one on the manifold there is 3/4. So I scrounged around and got some of these plumbing fittings, compression fittings, and just tried to find the right pieces to piece together in order to make that work right there. I even pulled out this old 429 intake manifold and Rochester carb and started robbing pieces off of it. This actually would have fit right here, and it would have been great for that brake vacuum. But as you can tell, it's got a port, an open port on the top there, and I don't have a plug big enough to fit that either. So I need to get a plug for that. Then I need to get the right fitting for that, and then I'll put everything back to the way I want it to go eventually. But this will work for right now to get it running and get at least the carb installed. All right, so let's try this one more time, and it does fit now. I already tested it, so I'm good to go on that. Like I said, on the back here, it is a very tight fit, so I'm just going to have to leave that PCV hose off for right now, and then come back and mess with it at a later time, which again, that's not a big deal. I just gotta get the right parts for it. So let's get this carb installed, and I got all my bolts and everything right down here, so shouldn't have any problem with that. Let me make sure I can find them all, and we will get this thing all put back together. It's got the carb cinched down. Looks really nice. Like I said, it's a wider carb than that Holley. So the choke is kind of sticking out a little bit further on this side. But once the air cleaner goes on, you won't really be able to tell that. So again, looks like everything's lining up pretty good. The difference on this one, as I mentioned, fuel used to go in over here at the front. Now it's going to go in over here. But I think I've got enough fuel line. You can see it right here. I'm just going to have to kind of reroute it. I've got the choke line. I can't remember what I did with that. I had a power. I've got to find it in here somewhere. And then essentially hook up the throttle linkage and the kickdown cable. Now, quick tip here, guys. Before I took this off, or before I took the Holley off, I took a picture of all four sides of the carb and from the top down, so that if I got into a pickle with just where are things supposed to go, I could always refer back to those pictures and kind of see how the linkage was set up. You know, see where the spring went, and kind of see where things, especially on this side where you have a lot of moving parts, kind of see how it all set up. So, you know, good advice is take some pictures before you start taking things apart, and that way if you've got to put it back together, you know exactly how that works. All right, guys, I got her buttoned up. Really, it took me longer than 30 minutes. but mainly just because of this frayed throttle cable. Just, man, it was so hard getting it back through this little piece and then onto that piece right there that cinches it down. Other than that, it went pretty simple. But now I think I've really figured out what's going on. I think my water pump is seized up because, man, it is making a crazy noise when I get it started. And that makes a little bit of sense because that's what, obviously the fan was on and I think it got too hot, and I don't know, I think something's going on there, so I'm fixing to start it up and see what's going on. So I've dug into this water pump issue. Had to have my wife come out and start it, because whenever I started this 55, I mean, it was just making like all this whining and screeching noise. It seemed like the belts were too tight or something, and I was like, what in the world? So I touched the alternator belt, and it was hot. It was really hot. And the AC was not so bad. Then I went down and touched that pulley. I know you can't really see that really well, but that pulley right down there where the fan blade was attached to, I think I found the culprit. And this is a good reason to stay organized when you're taking things apart. That is the bolt that actually goes into that pulley and holds on the fan blade and the pulley. That was the bolt that was in there. You can see the difference in the length. So it was actually going through that little aluminum piece on the back end side of that pulley that holds it to the water pump, and was probably scraping and jammed up against the actual water pump housing. It wasn't allowing the water pump pulley to actually turn whatsoever. So again, that pulley right there wasn't even turning when I turned on the car. And no wonder the belts were getting so hot for the alternator and the AC. And then you went down there and you actually put your hand on the pulley, and it was, man, it was like 200 and something degrees. It was really hot. So I backed off the bolts because I was thinking maybe my water pump is froze up. What's going on here? Well, it turns out when I started backing it off, I thought, okay, I'm going to get in, see if it starts. Sure enough, starts right up, no problem, runs great. And so the issue is that bolt was causing my water pump to freeze or not be able to turn, and I should have put in that shorter bolt. I had this bolt left over, and I thought, well, I don't know where that came from. Guys, that's a good example of why you should stay organized when you're taking stuff apart on your car. And you know, that's my bad. This whole thing's my bad. I will say, in starting up this demon carburetor, man, the thing just cranks right over, starts right up. I've got to adjust the idle a little bit, but other than that, it's really great so far. So I'm going to get this thing buttoned back up, put the right bolt back in that pulley, tune this carb just a teeny bit, and then I might even have a chance to take this out for a drive today. We'll see. Well, everyone, I got it back running, and she's running great, even with the fan not on. Remember, I took the fan blade off just to kind of figure out what's going on. It's running great because it's got the electric fan on. It runs about 175, 180, even with the AC on. It is absolutely much more responsive on the throttle. It kicks through the gears much better, so I think I adjusted that kick down cable a lot better, or what I call a TV cable. But that went much better as far as shifting. Overall, guys, I am just ecstatic. Whoops, sorry about that. Ecstatic about the progress. It was a long road, a lot of kind of ups and downs, but man, we got her running again. She's running great. Going to be well sorted for the next owner. And you know, a lot of ups and downs. This whole radiator thing, and the fan blade thing, and the fuel pump, and the carburetor. But it was one of those things where, you know, keeping a positive attitude throughout the entire process has really helped me. Really focusing on the final result, which is what we've got here today, which is a running, driving, well-sorted car. Learning some things along the way. Don't use extra long bolts on your accessory pulley for your water pump. And just kind of learning the whole fuel pump process. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen so far. I appreciate the likes, I appreciate the comments, and definitely hit that button below to subscribe. Guys, it's really neat. I'm seeing consistent growth in this channel, and I appreciate it, and I owe it all to you. So thank you so much.